I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and our toll-free number 800-951-0592, the website at allamericangold.com, and it is a hump day Wednesday. We got inflation data out. We've got gold and silver breaking out once again to the upside. Silver now above, or silver, gold above 1800, 1803, 1804 right now. Silver up strongly here, about 35 cents, just below now. Silver's just below $21, but technically, Jason, we've got a breakout here in silver. The next price target, $22. Gold, right now, gold, we're going to be looking 1865. So we've got a ways to go here. So talking about 1804, 1805. The next target here on gold, 1865. And then if it after that one, Jason, we're going to be talking about new highs. All of this on the heels of the CPI report. Let's call it what it is. The fake inflation numbers a little lower. Most of that, Jason, as we know, a relief from gas prices.
Yeah, and I agree with I was talking to Joe this morning. I think metal prices are getting ready to go off big time, whether it be a week or a month, but it's going to happen this year, and it's going to happen very quickly. Joe's got a special coming up that you really should just jump on the phone and start buying, because this little gully, I guess you can call it. I'll take it from the Big Short, the real estate agents. Oh, we're in a gully, right? Well, gold kind of hit a gully, right, Joe, for a little bit. Now it's going to be launching out of that area, and silver and gold, both great buys right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we had a dollar rally on the inflation, which put some pressure on it, and just like this, now that and here's the thing, inflation's not going anywhere, but hey, it didn't go any higher. Right now, we're on track. I think today's number, it probably took the full point off the table. Last week's jobs number took the quarter point off the table. I still think we're going to get 75 basis points on the next number. I actually think that the next inflation number, so we got to go another month, get another inflation number. I think that'll be lower as well. The headline number will be lower. I don't think the core number was lower this time around. I actually don't think the core number will be lower the next time around. And then I actually expect a rebound in oil prices after that, and I think inflation will pick back up again. But right now, everything very, very positive. And the story broke, what was it, Jason, 2 or 3 weeks ago, about a billionaire female buying a massive quantity of silver, and particularly silver eagles. They said where the person was from. It leads us to believe, it appears that it's the Walmart family.
Yeah, I don't have specific information, but there's only 3 women billionaires in Texas, and she's one of them. So you got a 33% shot by just saying it's her. And I watched a guy on YouTube talk, and he's like, you know what, the question that's not being asked is not who's buying it, but why are they buying it? He said big billionaire money does not buy physical silver. They like to have everything digital. They like Wall Street. They like stocks. I'll buy a silver mining company. That's how they buy silver. Well, for whatever reason, billionaires are buying physical silver. He said that's the question we should be asking. Walmart just bought the Broncos yesterday, in case you haven't been paying attention. Seems like Walmart's doing what the Warren Buffetts. I remember Warren Buffett several years ago buying railroads. Things that in an inflative situation that we may have for years are going to keep up with the prices of everything going up. You can't do that with dollars, Joe, when the inflation destroys dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting take. And again, I think that, to Jason's point, he's kind of thinking it's the Walmart side because they've been out buying things. Not just silver, but things. And so that's something that could very well be, and it's really interesting as we're watching all of this play out, because I just happened to I wanted to watch it this morning because I don't watch. I'm already at work normally at 5:30 a.m. Arizona time when the CPI number comes out. But today I wanted to watch because I wanted to get a judge for how giddy or not giddy they were going to be. So the number came in at 8.5%. So just double it could probably get the real rate. So real rate's probably 17, 8.5, which is ridiculously high. And Jason, they were almost euphoric about this number, right? And again, this is how they trick you, because just imagine when we get down to 6 or 5, they'll essentially be like, see, we squashed inflation.
Yeah, well, they had the same reaction. What was it earlier? Was it last year? No, it was this year when the numbers. I'm looking at the numbers. I remember when they started saying that they and I don't have it from. Oh, there it is. I remember back. Well, it was in 2021. Remember when it was transitory, Joe? It would drop a little bit. And even this year when it went from higher numbers and they dropped, this is it. It's all good now, Joe. Well, I have a feeling this 8.5 is not going to be long-lived, right, Joe?
800-951-0592. Gold higher again today, over 1,800. The December contract been as high as 1824. That's the one you see on TV. Silver's higher as well. The Dow up 500 points. Bonds yields falling on the super low number of 8.5% year. And remember, now that's year over year. To Jason's point, last year, what were we talking about? 5%. So even the Fed, by their own fake numbers, is saying you're down 13, 14%. We know that's not true. Now, in the numbers, here's what they were saying. That they said that prices really weren't down outside of gasoline. Gasoline prices were off almost 10%. Food prices were up 1.1% monthly. It's monthly. So inside that number, food inflation was 12%. Shelter up another 0.5%. So really, Jason, this was more about the energy prices. You throw out food and energy, the so-called core, up 5.9, let's call it 6%, pretty much where it was the month before. So really, the outside of energy, not a lot of other things were down.
And energy is going to be the whole key to the rest of the year. We're in August. The actual first day of autumn will be the 21st of September. That's when you're going to start seeing the temperature of the northern hemisphere cool down, and this is where energy is going to just blow up in cost. It gets colder, and people are just going to use a lot more energy up in the northern hemisphere, Joe. Your October, decision, your prediction of how bad could it get with all the geopolitical, the economic, and the energy sector all going to converge in one big sort of emergency. Of course, then you got the midterms in America. You got it's all here. I mean, the Trump thing is happening. All this stuff is happening. It looks like it's really going to just hit all together in September, October, November. It's people. I'm telling you, I think gold and silver hits all-time highs within that time frame. We're going to see gold above 2,100, Joe. I'm almost 100% convinced at this point.
Yeah, it's really the path and the trend. It's not going to be a straight line, but higher it's going to be. We got lucky. I don't know, whatever you would like to call it, but we have a special today. When we talk about different specials. Some are better than others. This one is a big one, very substantial, especially with reaffirming of breakouts here. We've got $20 gold. They were $22.15 yesterday. Gold's up again. We've got them on sale for $21.75. We got 75 of them, so we got a decent amount of them. This is a huge savings. You know, normally, hey, you save $10, $20, $25 would be a big sale. This is $40 off, so this is really aggressive here. $21.75 on 20s today at 800-951-0592. You know, yesterday we talked about the housing numbers and how much more housing inventory there is than was before, yet prices were still hanging in there. Today, Groupon says, hey, business has fallen off. They're laying off 500. Food, we talked about food. Food getting more expensive. Egg prices, Jason, up 47%. And unfortunately, the situation with beef, everybody now really focusing in on these cattle herds. Huge reduction in the size of these cattle herds. They expect beef prices to start really getting expensive going into the Christmas holiday, right? So you got Thanksgiving, Christmas, and really all into 2023 as well.
Yeah, Joe, I was at the grocery store, and I think it was a little higher quality, but I think it was top sirloin, like 7 ounces. It was $18. so it's more than $36 a pound.
Hey, that's not filet.
Yeah, I think it was top sirloin. I mean, it was expensive, Joe. That was not even a half a pound. It was 7 ounces. You know, you got the other inflation. You know, the shrinkflation going on, and the inflation all right there in that one piece of meat. So it's very expensive, Joe. And I don't see how it doesn't get more expensive in 2023. It's going to take 2023 if their so-called plans to get inflation under control, if they can get it done in the next year to whatever level they want to put it at. 2023 has to be more expensive than this year. And that's not a good thing. Things are already breaking down now, Joe.
Yeah, so, and again, remember what the goal is here. I think the goal is clear. Digital currency. That's what they want. These IRS agents, this is really, I think it's pretty simple. They need them all to determine how much of your money you're going to keep. That's really what they're for. You know, the enforcement arm. We'll get to that in a minute, but I want to bring this to light because this is, you know, you got to follow what's happening in other places to get an understanding of where we're going to be headed sometimes, especially with digital currency, right? Because we don't, we need to soften the blow here. Right, so they've got to be, the bankers got to be careful. They got to get us conditioned. They've got to cheerlead it. Right, they've got to build up acceptance of it and highlight all the great things about it. And it's a process here. Well, in other parts of the world, they don't need to do that as much. Because these governments are more authoritarians than we are. You know, look at Canada, Australia. You know, I'm not talking about, you know, just China here. The Australian Reserve Bank announced a new pilot program that will be rolling. They'll be rolling it out over the course of the next year. So starting now into next year. It's going to be in collaboration, Jason, with the Bank of International Settlement. So for people that, I know a lot of you probably heard us talk about the Bank of International Settlements. You don't really quite know what it is. Look at it this way. Here's a good way of describing it. It's the central bank of central banks. In other words, all these central banks kind of coordinate with the Bank of International Settlements. And just like it says, they settle payments, this way. All right, hey, the Australian Central Bank is paying for a bunch of Saudi Arabian crude, and it's going to go through the clearinghouse and through the Bank of International Settlements. Kind of look at it this way. It's not surprising that they're using the Bank of International Settlements, Jason, and testing their new digital currency system. And why do I have the feeling that this is going to be how it gets done? And there's some interesting information in here. The Australian Central Bank is now being added to the long list of participants with the Bank of International Settlements, with a target goal of launching them globally. And listen to this. Every time we get a new number, a new target, it gets closer. This is the closest I've seen yet. 2025 to 2030, Jason.
Yeah, well, there's an agenda there for 2030, so I think the world that they're trying to build around us is supposed to be done by the end of this decade. So that time frame.
You're talking about Agenda 2030, right? Yeah. I think this ties in very nicely to that. I think it's interesting. I think that they were hoping for 2030, and I think they're realizing, we may not get to 2030. We may be able to do it sooner.
Yeah, they might have to do it sooner, because if the whole thing is imploding, they have to have their new alternate system in place. They have to have, it's always pressure from below, pressure from above, and the answer is always government. So the problem is what they've created. The answer is going to be what they want us to swallow, and then they got to make everyone through government swallow whatever the pill is to change it over. So Joe, if they wanted to wait till 2030, they might not be able to. They probably don't like this, because they know if they speed it up too fast, a lot of people might get wise to it. And they know that they don't want it. They don't want that. They don't want people waking up. They need them asleep. So pushing it forward, I think, is more risk for them, because people might figure this out, Joe. That would be what I would hope to happen. But otherwise, it's coming. It's coming. It looks like sooner.
I want people to realize and understand. I know. Oh God, this sounds all complicated. I Bank of International Settlements, and Australia. I mean, who it's Australia. Who cares? What you need to understand. Two things. Number one, they're telling you the list is huge. Pretty much, I think we're at 92% of all nations are working with the Bank of International Settlements now on this digital currency. And the ones that aren't are so insignificant that it doesn't really matter. And they probably just use other countries' currencies anyway. But here's the thing. There is a deliberate, diligent march by the central banks to remove physical cash. And according to the Australian National Bank in this press release, they're talking about 8 years or less. Really, I mean, let's face it, 2022 is almost over. So really, I mean, we're talking about anywhere from 2 to 7 years. And why do I think that it's going to start in 2025? And then, hey, they're going to use that next 5 years, Jason, to essentially eliminate cash everywhere.
Yeah, they need to know who's in the White House in 2024 before they figure out how they're going to put it in place. So it's most likely going to be put into place after the next presidential election, whether that be Biden or Trump or whoever. It doesn't really matter who's there. They need to know that one of their guys is there. And then off and running, Joe, because I don't get the feeling that it's going to be a bumpy road, and we're going to have a lot of slow downward movement in the markets, and then 2024 happens. Let's just say the president gets inaugurated, and then why do I feel like the trapdoor just opens up in 2024, Joe?
And then let's be honest. I mean, really, with all of these central banks working with the Bank of International Settlements, doesn't that kind of scream global currency?
Yep.
Doesn't it? I mean, right, we talk about one world government. We talk about global currency. This is a huge step in that direction. And people, it's so funny. People were talking about this 20 years ago when I first started here, talking about that. And that was, the tinfoil helmet guys. Now, fast forward now, and everybody pretty much is like, yeah, that certainly seems like this is the path. They've been working on this for a very, very long time, and this isn't a show about COVID, but think about the authority that all of these quote unquote independent governments gave to the World Health Organization as an example, yep. Jason. We're seeing this play out more and more, aren't we? Where we're giving these globalized institutions incredible power.
Let me, and if I have enough, well, I don't have enough time. I have a quick analogy kind of to piggyback what Joe was saying about the complexity of this thing. They use these big words. They say, it's really boring. It makes you go to sleep. I got an analogy, Joe, because it's all like Don King. I think that's what the bankers in the world is. It's Don King, a guy that he makes up his own words and terminology and gets you all flustered. And then you have George Foreman signing a blank piece of paper for him to fill in later. When we get back, I can finish it. It's very much like that. It's not that confusing.
800-951-0592. The special of at least of this month. It's only the 10th. $20 gold pieces, $40 off today, $21.75 at 800-951-0592. And just a couple of things to keep on the radar. We've talked a little bit, Jason, about the Rhine River, a major barge. Think about the Rhine like the Mississippi here for Germany. It's so low. The water level is so low that the Rhine may be unusable as early as Friday. And then in Great Britain, energy prices have gotten so expensive that some people are paying almost the equivalent of $5,000 a month in energy costs, Jason. So, again, we've got a little bit of a reprieve here. I don't think it lasts very long.
I think that's the only thing that's keeping the oil prices down, Joe, is people are they're not using as much. I mean, it doesn't take very much. Everyone's going to use it. Well, if everyone cut back 10%, that's going to cut down oil prices by 10%, essentially. If people are going to cut back 20%. But at some point, you can't cut back anymore. You still have to get to work. You still have to go buy food. And
let me tell you something interesting today really quick. So we had oil numbers out. We had crude builds, which, okay, that's good. But gasoline down 5 million barrels. So the cheap gas, Jason, obviously rebounded in consumption here. When you totaled it all up, crude oil, remember you got gasoline, then you got the distillates, the heating oil, the jet fuel, the diesel. Really the last 2 weeks, absolutely flat. So we're pumping 5 to 7 million barrels out of the strategic oil reserve just to keep us in place.
Right, Joe. And did you ever think you'd come up with the year 2022 where you'd have a president that's shutting off all oil production that he possibly can? Water is low, so water electricity is being used less and being cut back. Places in the world like Germany are going to cut back on nuclear energy all at the same time. You have rivers you're talking about that are too low for a lot of movement of products to go down the river. It can't happen. All of these things spell that it doesn't matter if people are using a ton less, the price is going to skyrocket. That's the whole point, Joe, that we're moved into this Agenda 2030. And what does that mean? Well, people on the western side of the world, they need green energy. And then what I have the feeling is going to be like a back and forth between very expensive oil, very expensive green energy. I mean, it's all about keeping people in line, Joe. Barely have enough money to get by.
I got to cover this one. This is out of England, and it's interesting. In England, the post office handles a lot of banking services. Remember, that's been something that was talked about here for a little while. They just handled a record, this is in July, of cash withdrawals from banks. And it's very interesting, almost $1 billion of cash being withdrawn in Britain. And it's kind of funny. They're trying to spin it. Well, people are on staycation. That's what it is, Jason.
That's the way to save some money. It doesn't take very expensive gas prices to suddenly make traveling so very much more expensive. You know, we reported the flat drop-off of sales of RVs, the same thing that happened in 2008 with that market crash. RV sales crashed, and the guy that I was looking at who went through that and is watching this one said the drop-off in RV sales this time was dramatically worse and faster, and it came in before the really bad stuff, Joe. So, yeah, you know, people don't have money to drive around, Joe. That's what's happening.
Yeah, and some of it too, incentives, the subsidizing of energy prices there. But again, the one thing in the whole article, they gave all kind of staycation, budgeting, paying, you know, to pay their electric bill. Who pays their electric bill in cash? I mean, right? I mean, that's, you know, today that's very, very rare. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But the one thing they didn't say this, but I'm going to throw it out there. You think people are getting a little nervous about the condition of the banks over there in Europe?
Oh, yeah. Japan, China, and Europe, Joe, those banks are not looking too good, are they? They're having protests in China that if you go to look up some of the footage, it's being deleted off social media. You can't see the actual footage of the massive protests against the banks in China, because China doesn't want you to see that. So they told YouTube and other places, do not show this material. And so I've seen some sites, Joe, where they blur it out, and they do the just the right amount of beeping and censoring and blurring out the pictures, just so they can say, hey, look, this is what's happening. It's going to be huge. And Joe was saying the last segment, it's not all this stuff isn't as confusing as it sometimes sounds. Don King was really famous for making up words and sounding like he was really important. It's just like the Fed. You know, these guys, these moneyed controllers, they bring up these terms and they long-winded speeches that you get bored and you fall asleep, and they do all this so that you just let them have control over this process. You know what? I can't keep up with your 3-hour speech and all your big words. You're the expert. And really, Joe, it's a bunch of nonsense. Money is just an idea. When we talk about a digital currency, this is a different idea where they want to put the money. And it's much worse for the average person. But the average person is just going to say, yeah, you know what? They know better. Really? Really, Joe? You know, remember that word transitory? That didn't seem to work out too. They make up stuff. They just make it up. This is why we sell gold and silver. Joe and Jason do not make up gold and silver. It was here before Joe and Jason. It's going to be here after Joe and Jason. And the Fed can't do anything about it, Joe. There's only so many ounces per human being on the planet.
Yeah, and it really is. It's not nearly as complicated. But look at how they lay it out, right? And the power that they have, and people, you know, being stuck now, and I hate to say it, but stuck with 401ks and like these IRA things and things like. Let's just say you wanted to start an IRA today. You're 50 years old. Well, they only can put $7,000 in it. Well, why is that rule there? Right? Why do the billionaires and the millionaires get all these breaks and yet I can't do it? Because it's not meant to enrich you. They took our pensions away. They made us basically nothing more than a commodity, and really trying to ship away labor costs to the lowest bidder possible, and then pretending to be your friend with Wall Street and to cheerlead you. And it really is a shame. I mean, think about what Wall Street has done. I mean, we should have half the country should be billionaires according to these guys. Of course, now we got IRS agents to make sure you never become one. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. And Jason, one of the Fed governors, was out talking again this morning and kind of reiterating what we were talking about. Fed Governor Evans saying that interest rates are going to be at a minimum of 3.5. So right now we sit at between 3.25 or between 2.25 and 2.5. He's saying at least another point and a quarter, because he's now saying between 3.5 and 3.75 by the end of the year. But then said, hey, we're going to keep raising into 2023 into the fours. And I think that's something everybody kind of needs to understand here. There's a lot more to go on these rate hikes, which is really going to affect how this economy can perform. And again, any decline in housing prices is probably going to be offset by a rise in interest rates. And then, of course, the minimum payment on credit cards. There's been a huge, the biggest on record all summer long, pretty much the second quarter, the largest increases on record in credit card debt.
Yeah, well, when you have no money, that's the next option for the average household, Joe, is you charge it. And he's like, well, maybe later I'll be able to handle this. That's not a good sign when you're saying record highs in debt. You know, you don't want to hear that. The average person is supposed to, and of course, this is I guess this is old. We're old fashioned, Joe. The average person is supposed to get rid of debt over time. You're supposed to get to your retirement years and not have any debt, and have a little nest egg there to take care of you when you get in those older years, because we all die. We're all going to die. You got to have money there. So it's getting to be old fashioned, Joe, because they want you to have a certain amount of manageable debt. And then, here's the thing they don't really want to talk about. Good luck when you get to retirement age. You know, Social Security might be more, but it's going to be far less than what you need to survive with the inflation, which is here to stay, Joe. I think the inflation, this might be a permanent situation for maybe decades, depending on what their new system ends up turning out, Joe.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think you're right, and I think what they're doing, and I noticed it really early on in the CPI report today.
Yeah.
Like I said, 8.5%.
Yep.
And almost giddy.
Yeah.
Almost giddy about it. Matter of fact, one of them made the idiotic comment, oh, transitory could be, it just took longer. That's all.
Well, it depends on how you define transitory, Joe. Is that transitory? I can see it, Joe. If they get control of inflation in the future, they say, well, transitory to us meant 2 years.
Transitory meant 5-6 years. And, of course, transitory really meant, hey, we're just hoping in 3 or 4 years that the prices stop going up. Because you got to remember this 8.5% number. Well, that was just this year. Last year, right, it was up 5.5%. The year before it was up 3.5%, right? You start adding these things up together, Jason, and it's a massive number.
Well, yeah, and if you look at the June, the last two June numbers, it's 5.4 and 9.1, so that's 14.5, excuse me. Well, you add up the July, and because July was also 5.4 and 21, and it's 8.5, so it's down 0.6%. I think this is them saying, "Oh, look, over a 2-year span, we're down." They've gotten it. They it's like a football game. You're losing, or maybe you're just barely ahead, and the clock is ticking down. You're up by 6. You just got to make sure the other team doesn't score a touchdown. I think that's kind of where they're at, Joe. And if the next CPI number is 8.5 or lower, then it may be what you were predicting before the numbers were worse, which is a half point on the next rate rise, and then quarter points to get them to that 4.5% or that 3.5% you were talking about, Joe.
We'll see. And again, this is a lot to do with gas prices and really, again, how significant the problem's been in China, because the real reason that gas prices have kind of sat here is because China, after the lockdowns, has run into a major housing crisis, which is it's dramatically slowed their economy. We haven't seen a slow Chinese economy in the last 20 years, Jason.
The banks have closed people out of their accounts. The people aren't getting, the stuff we talk about that can happen here is happening to banks in China. People are having huge protests, and they're if you haven't paid attention, they're getting together, and they're not paying their mortgages. They're like, we'll make the banks pay. The funny thing about a socialist society is they understand if they get together, it's a group think, and it's a big problem. China does not want to show that these people are not complying to their government. They don't want to show it. That's a huge embarrassment to them, and it's scary, Joe. It's scary because I really think the oil prices being down. Well, these people, if they can't get access to your money, you can't buy gas, right?
No, you can't buy right. I mean, you can't buy anything.
Can't buy anything.
You don't have access.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's fascinating what they show you and what they don't show you. We don't talk. As far as I know, we're about the only ones I ever hear talking about it. I don't, and maybe I just don't watch enough TV.
It's censored, Joe. It's censored. How can anybody else cover it if the powers that be don't want you looking at it? If you're a CNN, they're like, oh man, there's some stuff going on in China. Whoever controls it, they just say no. You're not going to cover that. That's banned. Oh, okay, all right. No, I guess we won't cover that one. If it's whatever the financial channels, the big ones, they're not going to cover it if it's banned, right?
And I'm going to say this right now, something else too. How far away from China are we? As the FBI raids Mar-a-Lago for, well, we don't know. He may have some documents that should have went into the archives. Well, what documents? Well, we don't know. We're just going to go look. That's a former president of the United States. Yeah, don't think they're not going to come after your bank accounts. Are you kidding me? Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment coming up next. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour, the big $20 gold sale today, $20 Liberties, $2,175, $2,175. That's $40 off. We've got higher gold, higher everything really today. Everything's higher today. Gold at 1,800. If you turn on the TV and stuff, it's going to be 18.15, 18.20. Silver's up another 25, 30 cents here. $20.80 right now. The Dow's up 500 points on the super transitory 8.5% CPI print. But I want to highlight the FBI's raid on Mar-a-Lago and why it should concern you. Obviously, the FBI has now become weaponized. The latest bill, the inflation bill, as they like to call it, they're the enforcement arm of the IRS is just going to be a huge new government bureaucracy. And it just highlights the willingness. The government's going to take what it wants. And we've said this forever. Stroke of a pen, the government takes what it wants. And you got to make sure you've got something out of their privy that they can't take. And when you have it in your debt accounts, your bank accounts, your stock accounts, whatever it is, that's places that they can and will go. And the raid on Mar-a-Lago is really, it highlights this because they don't specify. Like normally it'd be, hey, when the FBI, they come with a warrant. Well, we believe that you have illegal drugs in here. We're looking for drugs. Well, we're looking for weapons. Right? This raid here was, well, we think there may be some documents that should have been in the National Archive. Well, what documents? Can you be specific? Give us an example, right? Tell us the type of documents you're looking for. And the answer was, well, we don't know. We're not even sure that they're there, but we're going to take them anyway. We're not even sure what we're looking for. And I find it amazing because I want to say, who was it? Yeah, Sandy Berger. He was the Clinton National Security Advisor that was caught on film stuffing documents, classified documents, in his socks and in his pants in D.C. and literally got away with. I mean, this was a guy that was deliberately trying to steal national secrets, and he gets off scot-free, and yet here they are trying to raid Mar-a-Lago. And again, I think it's solely based. I don't know that this would disqualify Trump from office. I think they would love it. But another thing they're trying to do to make sure that the people that allegedly voted for Biden instead of Trump in the last election don't vote for Trump the next time around, Jason.
A lot of times it's not what the news is reporting. I never think it's about blue team versus red team. I don't think that. You know what? One more time, that sale on $20 Liberties, that's one to jump on. 800-951-0592, $21.75, maybe a price we don't see for a very long time.